When I saw Tracy's office, I knew this was the perfect place to talk to you about today's subject. That's even-tempered patience. I mean, take a look at Tracy's office. She's got pictures of her 3 teenage children. And over on this side, she's got pictures of her husband on a motorcycle. If you've got a husband on a motorcycle who you ride behind, and if you've got 3 teenage kids, you know all about patience. I have a very good friend who says he's crazy, certifiably mad. I think he's probably right. His name's Graham, and Graham is a clown. Let me tell you where you'd see him. If by chance you watched any of the film of the torch, the Olympic torch, coming through London to the games, for the big Olympic games in the stadiums, you probably saw Graham. What you first noticed was the torch. Athletes running along, the fire glowing above them. And as they come running past, all the crowd cheers and hollers in good Olympic spirit. Right behind the torch runs a clown, dressed in his finest orange and polka dots, holding high a bright yellow banana. He got more cheers, more crazy huzzahs than the torch itself. That's my friend Graham. For the last 5 Olympics, he's been hired to come to the Olympics to train athletes, coaches, people in the stands, Christian kids who come around, to teach people to revel in the Olympics, to laugh, to enjoy, to have a great time, regardless of whether you win or lose. In fact, Graham tells me, my job is to inspire hope. When I talked to Graham most recently, all I could remember was a moment when the chief of the medical staff came into my office. He knocked and said, "Can I talk to you?" "Sure." I stood, we exchanged greetings. He sat down and he said, "Can I tell you a story? I've got a story I've got to tell you, Dick." I said, "Okay, can I tell you now?" I said, "Please, go ahead." It made me a little nervous because I know this man. You know, he's got a reputation. He is one of the most talented surgeons in the organization. He is also well known for an incredibly fiery temper, for an attitude that you don't ever want to copy, for the ability to throw things clear across the surgical suite and sometimes hurt people, and for a command and control approach to relationships that would make Napoleon blush. He was no one's favorite. He leaned across my desk and said, "You know how I work?" "Well, yes, sir." "You have 2 rooms going all the time." "That's right, I always have 2 rooms going. My assistant does the original cut, and then I go in and do whatever really hard work needs to be done. And as soon as I'm finished, I hand it off to my assistant, and then I go over to the next room. I scrub and go into the next room. Back and forth all day. I'm able to triple the amount of work I used to do. I was in the midst of one of my surgeries 3 months ago on a Tuesday morning when my nurse tapped me on the shoulder. "Doc," she said, "one of your next patients refuses to come into the prep room until you come out and talk to her. She's in the waiting room." I remember what I did. He said, "I swore a blue streak at my nurse, and I told her to go out into that waiting room and tell that patient to get her little," and then he used very clear language, "into the prep room or she wasn't going to get cut." And then I went back to my work, he said. About 10 minutes later, she came back. She tapped me on the shoulder. And by then I was just at the end of my part, getting ready to hand it over to my associate. And she said, "I'm sorry, Doc. She won't come in. You got to go talk to her." Well, at that point I was so angry. I stripped my gloves off. I stomped out into the waiting room, pounded aside the double doors. And there she was, just standing, in kind of a tottering stand, you know. She's not a young old lady. She was a little old lady with fire. And she reached out before I could do anything, grabbed my hands in the same vice that my grandma used to use, and said, "Doctor, will you please pray for me before surgery?" Stopped me cold. As you know, Dirksen, I don't pray. I don't pray in private. I don't pray in public. I don't pray in church. I don't go to church. I don't have anything to do with any of that. She wants me to pray? My mind started spinning. There's nothing I can do. She's got me in a grasp like a vice, and I've got to do something. The only prayer I can remember is, now I lay me down to sleep. And I don't think that's the right one to use right now. And then I remembered back in my deep childhood, some elementary school teacher taught me the Lord's Prayer. So I started praying, Our Father. It was really slow. And I'm sure she thought that I was deeply emotionally involved in doing this prayer for her. I was just trying to remember the words. I couldn't come up with any. Our Father, heaven, which art in heaven. And then she saved my life by joining me in the prayer. Hallowed. And we went all the way through the prayer, her hands relaxing as I prayed. We prayed. When I said amen, when we said amen, she released my hands, gave me a big hug, and said, thanks, Doc. I can go to surgery now. I've never had anything like that happen to me, ever. And this doctor, this powerful surgeon, the chief of the medical staff, tears flowing down his face and his hands shaking across the table, he looked at me and he said, everything in my life changed that day in that waiting room. I went back in to scrub for my next patient. It took me 20 minutes to scrub. I haven't taken that long since med school. And as I thought about it, I said, you know, I don't like who I am. I know what people think about me. I got to change. I don't know that lady's name. Have you heard about how I've changed? I loved his question. And I said, honestly, Doc, I've been out of town. No, tell me. And before I could even hardly finish that, he was already telling me, it's been 3 months. I haven't lost my temper. I haven't sworn at anybody in surgery. I haven't kicked any of the operating room staff. I haven't thrown anything. I haven't had an outburst of temper. I haven't had anything. And besides that, I know the names of every single one of my patients. I've never been happier. And you know something else I've learned? When all of my staff knows they can trust me to be kind, they're a better staff. This sacred work stuff, it's working. When the Apostle Paul was writing to the people at Colossians, he said, if you focus your attention on the peace of God, he will remove anger, rage, and malice, and replace it with even-tempered patience. That's something you can have. And it's part of the sacred work we love so much. Now, I got to ask you, what does that have to do with clowns? I'll tell you what it does. When you're living even-tempered patience, you have a happier life. And that's where I think of Graham. By the way, you know what they call my friend Graham at the Olympics? Dr. Happy. I want you to go to the gift shop, wherever it is on your campus. And if you don't have a gift shop, I want you to go to the front desk where the secretary lets people come in or chases them out. And I want you to get one of those, two, maybe 3 of those bright yellow balloons with the happy smile face on it. Your assignment is to make sure that 2 or 3 people whose faces are sad get that face changed when you give them a balloon. This is happy work.